Over the centuries, the Daleks have adapted many defences to strengthen their warriors and increase their effectiveness in the countless wars they wage across the universe. In order to maintain their position of supremacy over all other spacefaring species, the Daleks have had to adapt and alter their casing designs over time to overcome threats that they encounter. Early Dalek casings were noticeably primitive, but over the years the Dalek casing has evolved, having been upgraded with stronger armour, more powerful weapons, more efficient locomotion systems, and more advanced battlefield equipment. But arguably the greatest breakthrough the Daleks made when it comes to improving their soldiers was the implementation of the Dalek Forcefield. This defensive energy field, also referred to as a shield, was designed by the Daleks in the lead up to the last Great Time War and eliminated many of their previous weaknesses from the era before the war. For example, although Dalekanium armour is legendarily tough, humanity had been able to develop a type of projectile weapon that could penetrate a Dalek casing. These were called bastic bullets and were used to great effect in the late Dalek Wars. Daleks had also been proven to be vulnerable to powerful energy weapons, particularly their own weaponry, as during the Dalek Civil War, many Daleks were exterminated or outright obliterated by other Daleks. The implementation of the force field, however, eliminated their weakness to bastic bullets entirely, and provided them with a much better chance of survival when going up against enemies with strong energy weapons. This was crucial, as the Daleks were preparing to wage war with the Time Lords, whose soldiers used stasers as their primary weapon. There are unconfirmed reports that the Daleks had developed or were in the process of developing energy shield technology before the Time War. Some high-ranking Daleks, such as Dalek Supremes, had rudimentary shields to protect them from attack, which would allow them to survive an assault that their subordinates could not. Also, while not technically a force field, Renegade and Imperial Daleks during the Dalek Civil War would deploy disruption fields to interfere with the accuracy of their opponents, but this would not protect the Dalek if their enemy managed to achieve a direct hit. Nonetheless, by the time the Time War began, all frontline Dalek soldiers were fitted with personal force fields. These fields were invisible but would generate a slight electric field and add a metallic tang to the air around the Dalek. Once activated, the field would prevent any projectiles from reaching the Dalek casing. Energy weapons would be dissipated or absorbed by the shield, spreading the energy out across the Dalek and minimising its impact. The force field was also capable of melting bullets, even bastic bullets, before they could hit the Dalek. This effect happens too fast to be perceived by humans, but when slowed down it's clear that the bullets are impacting the field and being dissolved away to nothing. The field also prevented hostile targets from touching the Dalek, as any flesh that made contact with the shield was instantly set alight. The Dalek force field was a significant factor in raising the Daleks' combat capabilities, making them a formidable force across the universe. Daleks had been powerful before, but they had spread themselves thin across the universe and were bogged down in various interstellar wars. The introduction of the force field allowed them to sweep away their enemies before apparently vanishing from time and space to go and fight the Time Lords, leaving what remained of the civilizations in the universe completely baffled. During the Time War, the force field served the Daleks well, allowing them to overpower the Time Lords and make significant inroads into their territories. However, as powerful as it was, the force field did not make the Daleks indestructible. Concentrated fire from conventional weapons, be they projectile, electrical or energy-based, could break through the Dalek shield when focused on the Dalek's eye stalk, the weak spot in the shield. Due to the highly sensitive nature of the equipment used in the Dalek's eye, the field was at its weakest point at the area directly in front of the pupil, which presents a tempting target. The odds of landing a blow on the pupil that is strong enough to damage the eye are low, but if the attackers group together and focus their fire on a single target, it is still possible to temporarily blind a Dalek. Also, even with their shield, Daleks were still weak to highly focused powerful energy weapons, as concentrated fire of weapons like these could destroy a Dalek. There are also examples of energy weapons being modified to disrupt the functionality of the Dalek's casing, using the force field against the Dalek. But Daleks were capable of adapting against this if the attack was used too often, rendering it useless. At some point following the Time War, the Dalek energy shield was deprioritised by Dalek Command. After the Paradigm Daleks went back in time and restored the Dalek race to the universe from where they had left off when they disappeared to fight the Time War, Daleks were once again seen without shields. The exact reasons for this are unclear, although there are several potential explanations. The force field likely used up a significant amount of power. This wasn't a problem for Daleks in the Time War, as they had evolved to use time energy as a power source, which was abundant in the temporal battlefields of the war. But in the post-war universe, this power source was harder to come by, so it could be that the Daleks chose to keep their shields deactivated, or perhaps that the shields were eliminated entirely in order to conserve power. The Daleks of the Cult of Skaro kept their shields deactivated when they found themselves stranded in New York in 1930, likely to conserve what little power they had left, only choosing to activate them once the Gamma Strike had restored their energy reserves. The Daleks of Davros's New Empire in the Medusa Cascade appeared to not use shields either, as bullets fired by unit soldiers were able to make contact with the casing, and they were particularly vulnerable to the energy weapons carried by Rose and her allies from the parallel universe. universe. This also applies to the Ironsides, who similarly lacked shields. There are plenty of other examples of Daleks in the post-Time War universe using the Bronze Time War design but lacking shields, so perhaps the energy shields were removed from the standard Dalek soldier because they simply didn't need a massively overpowered shield in order to be effective exterminators. Sure, the Daleks might suffer 1 or 2 casualties during an attack on an enemy ship, but these are acceptable losses in the grand scheme of things. Now that the Daleks aren't involved in a cosmic temporal maelstrom conflict, they don't need to be as powerful as they were during the Time War in order to be the most powerful warriors in the universe. It is also possible that these Daleks are equipped with shields, but simply choose not to use them. Their arrogance is their biggest weakness after all. What do you think of the Dalek Forcefield? Do you prefer Daleks melting bullets and absorbing blasts with their shield? Or do you prefer seeing bullets ricocheting harmlessly off a Dalek casing? What do you think is the reason for the Daleks apparently choosing to do away with their shield in the post-Time War era? Do you think we'll see the Dalek Forcefield return to Doctor Who? Let me know in the comments below.
Don't forget to click below to subscribe to
Dalek Bumps.